can be free. I take the weight on my shoulders. I feel the sky come down on me. And I can't hold it much longer. Gonna let go so I can be free. Yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Ready for this?
Oh,
Frazier Friday. Braun, Kratz, Frazier, and my sport can't make pants.
Your sport can't make pants? What's your sport?
My favorite sport and my life really is devoted to baseball. It's 2024 and they can't make pants. So that will be one of the themes today. We're going to get into it in a sec, and we'll have a guest to cover the topic at length too, because it is all the rage at spring training right now. But before that, I'd like to get a little housekeeping out of the way and really emphasize that, number one, Monday, there is a new time to watch FT for about a month and change up until opening day. Eric Kratz, what time would that be?
Let's go with 11 to 1. 11 to 1
Perfect.
Eastern. It's like a pregame. It's your pregame party for the spring training games.
Yeah, I love that.
It is. It is.
Get
It gets
fired
you-
up,
gets you
watch a
done
little of
early.
us. Yeah, watch a little of us get fired up. Like, man, all right, they talked about this. Let's make sure this happens during the game. And most of the time, it's going to happen.
And
So-
we're going to talk to players. So if the show was at 1, those players would be playing baseball, at least for a few innings.
That's
So
true.
we can't do that. So that's why we do 11 o'clock for about a month and a half until opening day. And then we're back to 1 o'clock Eastern time to fit the schedule of our wonderful player guests. And number two, this week is a 6-day show week for Foul Territory because we have a special on Saturday. That is tomorrow, 2:30 Eastern time. You can watch and listen to the show right here on the FT YouTube channel from Oakland at Fans Fest, plural, because the A's would never run a fan fest for their fans because they're trying to move and they hate their fans. Oakland 68's last dive bar. I'm wearing the shirt today. I appreciate them. And also, we'll see everyone. It's going to be huge. It's going to be a big turnout. Let's see if I can get my shirt in here for a sec.
Oh,
There it
nice shirt. Dang it. I wish I was going to this thing.
They sent me a few other fire shirts too, so we'll unveil some of them. But baseball's last dive bar is right here.
What a great name too. Those guys they're pushing an initiative. I love it. It's fans that, one, are not going to be Giants fans, I'll tell you that. Two, they ain't coming out to the games this year, and I love it for them. I love the fact that they are banding together, and hopefully, to me, I hope it does something. I hope it shows Major League Baseball that Oakland is passionate and needs a baseball team.
Agreed. It's going to be a big-ass turnout. We'll talk more about it at the end of the show, too. There's been some drama caused by the A's. Shocker. But let's get to the drama of the last 24 hours as we charge the damn mound. We have a wardrobe malfunction. MLB 2024, presented by OnlyFans. Now, the latest issue is that players are wearing see-through pants. It is apparently the same material as it was in the past, but it's more of, say, an eggshell color. And there it is. So whatever is going on in your life underneath your pants is now brought to life thanks to Major League Baseball. Todd Father, imagine if you throw those things on and you run out there to play, and all anyone's thinking about, talking about, looking at is that instead of your glove, your bat, and your beautiful smile.
Yeah, they're worried about – Eric's looking for his – they're worried about the junk, man. I mean, Jesus. Let's talk about this. I mean, I have a 9-year-old too as well. He likes to wear lime green underwear underneath his pants, but I always told him, listen, you can't do it with the white pants. And the one time he did it, people are like, yo, dude, are those shorts, underwear? What do you got going on there? And, you got some people that are superstitious, some baseball players, wear some lime green, some lime anything, fluorescent, something underneath. It's going to show, man, and that's embarrassing if you want the truth. I'm not a big fan of these pants. I know they're thin. They probably feel great. I've heard some good and bad about it. This is something crazy. I mean, what happens if Rob Manfred had to wear these pants? going to work every day, dude, he wouldn't wear these. So that's just something where they have to fix it, just like the jerseys, and they got to fix it really quick because they don't have much time. It's difficult. I saw some other pictures where, I don't really want to look at too much. It's just it's not very good for the eyes if you want the truth. So find a way to fix this one, please, for every fan of baseball.
You said you've heard some good about it.
Well, because of how thin it is.
If you find one person that's not a Nike athlete that has said this is good, please show me. Please DM me. Please send. I don't want DM pics of dudes wearing pants. Thank you, because we are getting some X-rated pant, like in-game pant usage, like this. I don't understand. In 2011 in Lehigh Valley, the Majestic store, the Majestic factory is in Lehigh Valley in Allentown, and I got to try probably 8 different kinds of pants, different kinds of material, seeing how they like wash, a little bit thicker, like a double knee, a thinner pant. Not once did one of these pairs of home, do I say pairs or pair? Pairs of pants at home, which were white pants, were they ever see-through like this. This is Brutes Magoots.
Some people want a Chippendale sponsorship involved here. Dave also said, will there be dancing poles at every base now? Do we have poor young Casey Schmidt too?
Oh my gosh, Casey.
Hey, listen.
Parents, you're about to potentially witness some disturbing scenes of unfortunate situations. Players that are victims of a league that has gone cheap and says, deal with it. You eventually will get used to showing everything and being balls to the wall in 2024.
I'm all about deal with it. Like, I'm all about, like, suck it up. Like, seriously, stop complaining. This is not a stop complaining situation. Like, this is we blurred out a picture. We are not, we're not putting smut out on our show here. This is like, this is what was sent out, and they're allowing them to go onto the field. And some of the teams don't even have all their pants. They don't even have their custom pants yet. Like, did the season sneak up on you?
The Reds are still rocking their old pants right now.
Well, some of the teams have the new pants, but just uncustom. They're like, we'll get some larges, some extra larges, and some double XL. That's not how it goes.
Not in the big leagues.
Not in the show. That's a minor league issue.
Send those down to the minor leagues. Let them figure it out. You're in the big
Adam
leagues.
Jones says he goes commando, so he was like, I would have been out of the league
No.
fast.
Something's going to sneak up on somebody on first base when he's rounded, so he's got to be careful over there.
I'm telling you,
it's difficult.
Tony Clark spoke. Yeah.
Go ahead. Sorry.
No. Go ahead.
It's just something, again, in baseball where it's just like it's a head scratcher, dude. It's like, come on, dude. Why? The sport takes heat all the time, and now it's just one thing after another, brother.
It's preventable.
Very preventable.
This was preventable.
Let's fix this and move on. This shouldn't take that long. The salesperson needs to understand Major League Baseball players comes first. Fix this. You can figure this out within a week and get it out within a week. Couple weeks later, everybody should have the right pair of pants on.
Yeah, but they're not letting players do that. So multiple players who recently were fitted said requests to take the fabric in an inch on the thigh or the bicep are rejected. So you have certain body types that you get to pick from, right? Making it easier so that they don't have to do all of the tailoring. And I feel bad for the tailors because clearly they're missing out on business and they are very much needed. But Tony Clark said, he said we offered input, suggested what the challenges were going to be, and they needed to be remedied on the front end. They weren't. And Clark, of course, leading the players union. So he's talking to players and he's like, adjustments are being made to jersey side, waist, inseam, length, thigh fit, bottom of your pants. The goal of these meetings is to provide players with the most comfortable uniforms available for opening day. So he said, they're talking to the people they're trying to talk to, but great article again by Stephen Nesbitt and some of his colleagues over at The Athletic, if you want to check it out. One player said he might just have to go to Dick's Sporting Goods and get it done. One NL All-Star apparently refused to wear the pants at all. You've got a coach who tried it on day one, and then went home, got his stuff from last year, and just said, all right, this is what I'm doing for the rest of the time. And I'll give you a couple funny little comments because it's all over social right now. So someone online said, one rain delayed game will break the internet. Someone with an account, Manny Snackyow, said, whenever I'm nervous public speaking, I just pretend people in the audience are wearing baseball pants. And Sean Penny, replying to a Jared Carabas tweet, said, Nike probably. We listen to the players. We understand what they want. MLB players told us they intend to go balls out to win. So we design uniforms to show those balls.
Two things. This is why, honestly, it's funny because I got asked to bring my old Reds uniform to this event I had to do. I still have 90% of the pants I've worn. Do you or no?
No, I saved like 3 or 4 pair.
I don't know why I have them all from every team. I have a bunch of them, whatever it is. So it's like, this is case in point number one. Keep everything until you're done playing, pretty much.
Because you can reuse it now.
Exactly.
You could use last year's.
Yeah, and then number two, what happens? Just say all the players come together and like, you know what? We're gonna wear some baggy ass sweatpants just for a couple of days to, send an old big screw you to the league kind of deal, man. I think that would be pretty interesting, wouldn't you?
I think it would be hilarious. And the union's
be
going around right now. They can connect. It's just like a Lego. It's like the Lego movie. Honey, where are my pants?
Why not? What are you gonna do?
Well, let's bring in a guest to help us out here, okay? Because she is witty on socials and probably having a blast over the past couple days reading all of the fan replies to what's going on here. Jessica Kleinschmidt, who also works with Awful Announcing in the Comeback Group, and you can listen to Short and to the Point, her show, which I'm sure will cover what's going on here. Jess, great to see you. Feel like you would enjoy a topic like this because at this point, I don't know if I'm comfortable telling some of my friends who have young kids that they should watch Major League games right now. I want them to fix things up a little bit and then say it's okay because they don't have editors like we do at FT to blur everything.
Yeah, and I was looking at some of these photos, and it just reminds me of like back in the day when we used to play Little League. We could see the pocket inside of our pants or through the pants, and it just very much reminds me of that. But it's kind of like the baseball team in a movie where the movie isn't about a baseball team, but there's a baseball team there, so they have to put uniforms on them. I don't know. There's a lot of oversight, of course. It doesn't look like they're major league uniforms, but I have had such a blast online seeing what everybody's writing and tweeting. I think it's been fun. It does suck because we're getting a little too much behind the scenes of what goes into, the heartbeat of under the uniforms is a little too specific at this point. But yeah, it's weird. I don't like, and especially if you compare them to the previous years, and like the uniforms were so sick last year. I loved them, and then you makes you miss what we used to have. So, but yeah, online's having a lot of fun with it.
Todd, I think we're getting a little too much of what's going in the pants, in the uniforms too.
I think so too. I think that's maybe for somebody else to talk about, not me, because that's it's tough.
Todd's blushing.
I am. Excuse me for a second. But on a serious note, there's a thin line between comfort and embarrassment, in my opinion. Well, in everybody's opinion. I mean, you want to be comfortable. You want to wear something that's comfortable. They're professional athletes making all this money. People are watching on TV. But now it's kind of an embarrassment. Why? They say the old saying, don't if it ain't broke, don't fix it. The uniforms have always been great. Even if it was from Majestic, another company, I get it. Why not just mimic what has been going well? Why do we have to always come to a situation where, we got to keep up with the times. We got to have holes in the jerseys to make it breathable. We got to have pants that are thinner. No, it's not always the case. I just don't understand why everybody has to switch everything up when things are always been that good.
I totally agree. And especially because we're trying to push the pop culture aspect on Major League Baseball as much as possible. We see it in NBA constantly. We wear the shoes. I'm a huge shoe geek. I'm a sneakerhead for sure. But I'm not looking at what the baseball players are wearing. I'm looking at what the NBA players are wearing. And we're not wearing the same stuff that baseball players are wearing unless like I see them in street clothes and I want to see what they're doing. And I also hear, I'm right there with you, Todd. I don't think we should, fix anything that isn't broken. But I also know that there could be a narrative where we're constantly embracing the change. And I'm not comparing the uniforms to pitching clocks and bigger bases and all of that. But I think it was one of those things where it's like something's going too well and you want to see if you can enhance it a little bit more. I have no idea. I'm just speculating at this point. I know nothing. But I also know that it's always an experimentation with this game. And we started with the actual game itself. So if you're viewing that and you see how successful that is, why not take it a step further and doing what they're wearing? And it's just weird though. Like when I see the guys taking the photos, we just had media day recently, so we got to see them up close and personal, very much so in this case. But I also know that when it comes to that, it looks different and almost elementary to me. And I don't know what went behind any of these decisions or the design process, but I also know that how are you not having the conversations with the right people to make these decisions? Because it doesn't sound like they are. And, you have certain people speaking out about it. And the guys that I've spoken to, it's a small sample size. The guys that I've spoken to who do wear this uniform are very much like, I'll play in whatever. I don't care. Just get me the help. Just let me play. Let me get out there. And they're very genuine about that. But I think a lot of the veteran guys are, like you said, they have stuff to compare it to. And it's just such a sleek one color altogether. And now there's just so many nuances that we're getting distracted by. And I don't think that that's the ultimate goal. We just want it to look a certain way. And, I'm biased. I cover the A's, and that's a very sick uniform. It's so clean. It's so good. And it's different. But they managed to find the balance to make it look good and different. So I don't know why they're trying to make something different and ruin it, especially the normal colors, like the typical blues and the reds and the whites. And they're kind of, it's like a hot ass mess. I don't know.
Are we making a mountain out of a molehill here? Because
you guys always are, Eric. Like you guys just do that. That's who you are. But I think that's also it's good though. It's good that you guys are doing that because you guys of all people have been there. You know what it takes. And I feel like, and I'm a genuine person. If you look good, you feel good. If I show up to the ballpark and I'm in my best garb, I'm going to fucking nail every interview. I'm going to be so good about like all my reporting and stuff like that. And it's no different than you guys, and when a pitcher gets to choose the uniform, when our pitchers put that Kelly green on, like something magic's going to happen. It's just part of that issue. And it just goes into, that's a decision that they make. That's a decision that they make to start and they get on the bump and all the other players have to follow suit. But so I do to a certain extent think that you're making a bigger deal out of it, but you guys also aren't wearing the uniform. So you don't really know, but I also very much support why you should be pissed off about this, so it's just it's one of those things that I support both sides.
Well, then the other side should be, we have to grow the game. So we have to make a big deal out of this, but we also have to be willing to change because exactly what you said, baseball needs to find a niche. Baseball's niche is you play every single day. Baseball's sucky niche is we don't leave anything, like nobody's, whatever, I won't go to today's game because another one's coming. Or, some ownership's going to just move the city. So there's no, what is baseball's niche? And maybe it's in the uniform. Maybe it's changing the uniforms because basketball has their own niche in the sense of how they market, how they do all this stuff. But they have like 19 jerseys a season. So we have to find some kind of happy medium between the Yankees having 2 jerseys ever, and they're the most marketable team. And, basketball's most marketable team is the Bucks or the Warriors. And they have 19 jerseys that people can choose from. Maybe that's how people connect. So maybe baseball is behind the times and we should stop complaining about it.
I'm right there with you. And I just see things differently. And I know not only my demographic, I know who covers the game, and it's a certain type of person. I started my career at Cut 4, where we were always looking at the nuances, the differences, like what was going on in the dugout during the game, what they were sporting, what they were talking about, the type of flavor sunflower seeds they were eating, how many pieces of bubble gum they can chew before they make a big bubble. Those are the things that I was looking at on top of covering the game, because I wanted to find what separates and what makes baseball different and fun and sexy and all of those things. And I understand that not everybody's paying attention to that, but when they mess it up, that's when people start paying attention to it. Like you guys said, the uniforms were fine. They were better than fine. There is nothing better than a baseball player looking all together in his uniform, ready to go. It's just, there's something so good about it. And then knowing in 3 innings, especially if you're like a Dom Fletcher or you're Ramon Laureano, that thing's going to be dirty in the next 3 or 4 innings because you're going to lay out for a ball, or you're going to be Estee Ruiz, stealing his umpteenth base. That's the best part about it, because it's so clean, and then you dirty it up. And now it's already kind of dirtied up and in this approach. So it just feels very like we put it in the hands of the person who doesn't know about the game. And I feel like it happens a lot in this game. And just like you said, we're looking for that thing that separates baseball from everybody else. And we kind of named it. It's different because it's different, which is beautiful. Like we're all baseball hardos. We're not all on the same level as we're trying to introduce not just women, but a different demographic, a younger demographic. And then this is the product we give to them. You wonder why people aren't coming to games constantly. And you're right. And if you missed that game, there's another one. That's totally fair. You have a series, you have 3 more games, 2 more games to go to. The storyline's pretty much going to stay the same. You don't have to worry about that. Obviously, the pitcher matchup's going to be different. Injuries are going to change some things. When it comes to the overall product, and we want to introduce a certain type of person into the game, and this is what we're giving them, like, what do you expect? So I'm right there with you.
We're never going to forget these team photos in spring training. That's for damn sure, because you can't take those back. But, for me, I actually think, Jess, that baseball had a PR mess 2 weeks ago when we see cheap, inconsistent uniforms, weird coloring that was off, right? The uniform and the number was worse on an update, all of that, right? This pants issue in the past 24 hours has actually wiped that out and now been the new problem. Like, we're not talking about, the numbers in the name or whatever is small, because that is another story too. And it just aesthetically doesn't look as good. And fans are pissed because they're going to pay more for uniforms and they look worse. But now, like you mentioned, I think it struck a chord with me that, and there we go again, a player has to worry about this, because now it becomes what Todd mentioned earlier, an embarrassment situation. So in that story in The Athletic by Stephen Nesbitt and friends, there was a quote from an anonymous player who said, "You don't want to be worried about that bullshit on opening day. It's a shit show." Like, that's the problem. Is there are some guys that are in the Erik Kratz camp of, I don't want to complain, but I think they finally hit the line here with what's going on right now.
Right. I'm glad they are complaining, to a certain extent, because like it's a lot of, there's no more shut up and dribble anymore. I fucking hate that narrative. These guys have a voice. It gets me so, why is DoorDash calling me? That's weird. I didn't order anything. Did I order something?
They're watching.
Anyway. Probably always. But I feel like that's very important, because, even the guys that I talk to that just want to go out and play, that could be they're at a different mindset than the rest of everybody. And I totally understand that. But same thing, like you want to like the Deion Sanders, you want to look good, you want to feel good. Why have one extra layer of worry when you spent the entire spring training worried you're going to get a roster spot? That's half of the, like more half of the battle. You're battling it out. You wait to the last minute. You're Brent Rooker, who waits to the very last minute to get the call that you made the team. And then you have to worry about this stuff, which sounds silly, because I bet you $1 million if Brent Rooker showed up on last year's opening day with that uniform, he's like, I'm going to play. I don't care. But things go on, things take time, and you're going to do what you need to do. And that's part of it. Imagine a minor leaguer 10 years in just grinding it out. You show up to the bigs and this is the product you're given. And I get it. They're probably going to suck it up, but that's not what we were telling you about the dream to get there and all of that. And I think that that's important too, because we're constantly like, well, what's on their baseball reference page? You guys know I'm a sucker. I love these guys and I will do anything for them. And I'm approaching them. If they go 0 for 19, they're in a slump. I'm very much aware of what's going on. But we can't tell them, to show up and hit the ball. But if they're uncomfortable, like that's not fair. And like I mentioned, like all I do is show up sometimes and I have a microphone in my hand, or I write up a quick thing, or I host my podcast. So that's a very minute detail of what comes into my daily life. But how are we supposed to make them go out and, hit the ball every third at bat and expect them to be great, but they don't have the right equipment to do that? Because the uniform, sure, it's part of the look, but it's also part of the equipment and how they're supposed to show up and play their best. And if they're going to be uncomfortable throughout the process, what are we expecting? That's not fair.
Yeah, you're right. Hey, I mean, I didn't play, you didn't play. Fun to get these guys' perspective, but like I played high school basketball, and if I showed up to practice and I was wearing a heavy sweatshirt, I probably wouldn't shoot as well than if I was wearing, a sleeveless jersey. It's hindering ability to perform, and it's embarrassing.
Or think about when you throw,
yeah.
Or when I used to throw out the first pitch, I wouldn't know how to throw a ball unless I had a mitt on. Or a glove on. I wouldn't know how to do that because it's just what I'm used to. It's the muscle memory of it all. So why would that be any different if and like you're going to have to adjust. These things happen. You're not going to be forced to do stuff. And these guys add the stuff on, whether it's the sweatbands, or there's certain types of cleats and what have you. But the uniform that they all have to wear that you can't adjust. And not only that, but you're going to be uncomfortable. It's something that women deal with on a daily basis constantly. So why do we have to have, maybe they get have to adjust to it too, but to be uncomfortable knowing that things are going to show, like it's actually kind of a messed up thing for them to have to go through. Because now that they've seen the photos, they know what's showing. That's going to make then you get on a tear where you're in the outfield and it's a little bit wet. The next thing you know, you're at Jersey Shore status. So it's just one of those things.
Hey, any publicity
Todd.
Definitely good publicity. Whoa.
Shot fired, Jersey Shore.
Whoa. No. I love Snooki. I was Snooki in a different life with the big hair, the tan. I have a shirt that says, where is the beach? Todd, I wouldn't, I have your back always, Todd. Never. I would never back.
No doubt. Hey, I knew it came from a good place.
Jersey love.
Yeah.
Jersey
exactly.
love.
Well, Mikey in the chat had a good point. Several years ago, the NBA and Spalding tried a different basketball. I remember this. The players hated it. They went back to the old ball after only a few games. Let's see if MLB does the same. Doubt it. And
that's the problem.
Changing some basketballs versus changing uniforms is tougher. What?
The MLB doesn't do these things quick. That's the problem, I think.
No,
it's like
slow.
They sit there and they're like, oh, yeah, no, there's more important topics. Well, of course there is, but it's going to take forever, and it might not even get switched. So, good luck. Here we go.
Yeah, I think that's fair too. Is the logistics of it all? How does that work? I'm not having their back on this necessarily, but it's maybe they're getting it early on now. By the time opening day comes around, something changes, but there's enough of a response where you're getting statements from people involved. But we'll see. Who knows?
They've got a month to figure this out, so they need to. Although, the players were the old pants, right?
Yeah, they should put Jess and all these beautiful women to figure out the right outfits to wear for these guys to play, comfort-wise and looks-wise, and I think we'll be all right. What do you say?
I agree. And I played baseball before, I know the aesthetic that goes involved with it. But I also know that it's not really 100% up to me, but if we're constantly hearing players and NL All-Star complaining, that's going to talk about something. I mean, they know it looks good, and we're always trying to make these different changes. That's why, every year with the Players Weekend or All-Stars, they have certain aspects to them and everything. But if you look at the other sports like NFL, NBA, when they do have All-Stars or Pro Bowl, they don't get too cute with it. They just leave it normal. And I know I was on the show for the All-Star break, but at the same time, I feel like it's constant, we're trying to get too cutesy with stuff, and we've already done all the changes to the game. Why are we constantly trying to add bows and stuff? When you wrap a present and it looks good, leave it alone. Just leave it alone. You don't got to add any more things. Don't put on too much makeup. I struggle with that. I try to go too hard and the eyeliner and stuff like that. And I look in the mirror, I'm like, who's that clown? And it's one of those things. So just you leave it alone, keep it simple, do what you got to do. and I think it's going to be fine. I think that's what's ultimately happening here. It's too much. We're trying too hard.
We're trying too hard, and it was a money grab too, because now players can't get things done custom. That's a money thing, right? Like, it costs more to customize versus having like 4 fits for everyone, because every baseball player can fit into 4 molds. So Jess, important topic here. I feel like you and me could, decipher if there was a see-through pants situation. I feel like we could quality control that in 5 seconds. So I don't know what went wrong here, but like, I've been to a store and tried on a shirt, and I'm like, oh, this is see-through. I'm not going to buy this. But apparently,
you would buy that.
The message got lost in translation.
It sounds like the Scott Braun.
You're right situation. For
Sounds
a
like
festival,
a
yes.
Scott Braun shirt.
For a baseball game, no. So
Scott returns shirts that aren't see-through. He's like, I'm not doing that. Like, what is that?
Exactly.
Make uniforms for MLB players, not for ravers. Jess, thank you so much. Have a great weekend, and hopefully we fix this malfunction. We appreciate you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. And you can follow Jessica at Kleinschmidt JD on Twitter, and listen to her show too, short and to the point. And that was well said. Okay, let's get to Hot Corner and cover some lingering free agency situations. We will start with Chris Cotillo, who does a great job covering the Red Sox every day. And he tweeted, an industry source said the Red Sox have maintained contact with Scott Boras. Even this late in the process, Jordan Montgomery's asking price has not dropped to the point where the Red Sox could fit him into their budget, which has been in place for some time. Does every team have a budget? Do you guys know how this works?
I'm confused.
I'm genuinely asking. I know some teams do, right, Kratz? Some teams say, this is what you are allowed to spend. Bring everything to me, but go also have fun and just make sure it is within this number, right? It's like if a parent gives like some money to their kid and says, all right, you're going to the mall with your friends. Here's $15. So do what you want with it, but don't come back to me and say you didn't eat lunch because, you bought a shirt.
You get a certain amount of money and you get to go spend it, and you ain't coming back with any of it. Like, they may buy ice cream and give the person a $10 tip, not knowing they gave them a $10 tip. Like, they're like, So kids need to learn how to spend money. Owners need to learn how to communicate. And to me, Boston, it feels like there's no direction, specific direction from ownership. Craig Breslow's coming in. Ownership's saying, we're going full throttle. Okay, what does full throttle mean there, boss? Craig Breslow on his first day. Well, that means that we want to go full throttle, and so go do that. Okay, well, I want to go and get this guy. Well, maybe let's just see how we can improve the team. No, I need an answer, because Scott Boras has a pitcher out here that made more starts than any of our starters. And that's what we need. We need Jordan Montgomery more than we need Blake Snell. He's going to cost you $26 million a year. Well, it's not about the money. Well, what is it about then? So the ownership needs to communicate. And based on the fact that they constantly are getting rid of GMs, I feel like there is a disconnect in the person writing the check and the person telling the person to write a check, hey, this is what is going to help our team. This is a value. And maybe I'm completely wrong on this. Maybe the Red Sox look at it and they say, nah, a Jordan Montgomery doesn't make this team better. Well, then why did you put $300 and some million into Rafi Devers? Why do you have Jarren Duran, possibly an all-star? You went out and got Yoshida. Are you bargain shopping when you're still $30 million under the CBT? It just is confusing. There's so many mixed messages coming from the Red Sox.
And to me, you think about it now, they're in on Montgomery, but why does it take this long? That's the confusing part to me. If you want somebody and you want to be a contending team, you go after them. And then you start. Now you're starting to have these, not arguments, these contract disputes over, I'm waiting for the money to come down. Well, why couldn't this happen 2 or 3 months ago? This is the problem with baseball. They wait, thinking like, if we wait, we'll get a better deal. Well, guess what? I know that the season starts in what? Less than a month and a half? I don't know a month. A month,
Yeah.
and you're still waiting on Jordan Montgomery. You knew what the money was. You knew it was going to be. It didn't sneak up on you. Get in there and ask for the guy right away if that's who you really wanted. There's no waiting game anymore, man. I can't stand that. The strategy is out the window. If you want somebody, go get them. And you want to argue and go back and forth on price, fine. That's part of the business. But do it right away. Don't just do this now. Oh, man, we tried our best. Oh, well, you got a month left in the season. The guy's going to miss half the spring training. And you think Jordan Montgomery is going to be 100% ready to go and play? After you sign him, you got to go through this. You got to go through that. And all these different things just to get him on the field. So teams are wasting time, and Red Sox too as well. Like you go after the guy right away. That's the strategy's out the window. I can't stand that anymore.
But right now the standoff is occurring because there's a few teams that clearly need to make one or two more moves, but they are looking for the player at their price. Like what we're talking about right now, guys, is Jordan Montgomery to the Red Sox. But if the Red Sox don't get any of the big 4 or 5 free agents left on the market, they have shown that they don't care, right? Because if you really cared, you would be more aggressive on this front. So you get a little Jordan Montgomery rumor action, but if he doesn't end up there, they go up. Oh, well, this was the number that our computer said he's worth, and we didn't end up with him. It's not I'm getting this player and getting this done. Obviously, everyone has a limit. I understand that. But I think with the front offices that are left, that are still trying to make moves, at least some of them, right? Red Sox, Cubs, and Giants to an extent, their computers punch out a number, and they're trying to get the player for below that number so that they can go to their boss and say, see, we got him at a value. That is most important to them. Second most important is actually getting the player. That's how it works for these teams, not for every team, not for the Phillies, not for the Braves, not for the Dodgers, not for the Yankees sometimes.
Winning teams.
And I want to also say something what you said. Every team needs one or two guys. You know what I'm saying? So it's not – I understand what you're saying. There's teams that, because they haven't done anything, need guys, but every team in baseball can need another pitcher, can need another, guy to come off the bench or what have you, whatever it is, a reliever. Everybody needs that guy. Like, shit or get off the pot here. Let's go. And, of course, like I said before, the business side, that's a different story. Just show that you want that guy right from Jump Street, at least – and prove to your fans and your city and everybody else that we're trying here. But to do it this late in the game, that's the confusing part. And I know people have talked about, having a timetable for picking up guys. I mean, it's not fully out of the question. I mean, I'm not saying it's good or bad. It's something I really want to look and think into if that would be good. Say you got a month and a half to pick up guys. I mean, then what happens? So it's just something where more talks need to be done.
They'd squeeze guys, though. On a deadline, they'd squeeze guys.
They would squeeze them, and you wouldn't get as much. They'd be like, hey, tomorrow's the last day you can sign. You have that $40 million contract. What?
But then what happens if there's 40 guys that don't sign within that timestamp too? So it's like, it's tough. Either way, I'm not saying it's good or bad. I'm just saying people have talked about it. It's just something where, why are you pressing this right now? Spring training games are starting like in a couple of days. Like, this is nuts. There's how many free agents right now that can help a ball club are still out there?
I think teams are putting their feet down. They're they're drawing a line in the sand specifically against Boris, and we're going to hear more about it. And
then players need to start thinking about agents. Like, if this happens all the time,
that's a real thing.
That's a real thing, dude. People switch agents all the time. If this is the case against one guy, which I have no inkling towards, then when you're a player, it's like, dude, I need to worry about me. This is me at the end of the day. Because guess what? You do. What was the guy's name? Foster said it all the time. You play this game of baseball. You live a lot longer after the game of baseball. You do a lot more things. Whatever his quote was.
He would always come in and he would always come into spring training and he always talk about you're going to be not a baseball player longer than you are a baseball player.
So you got to worry about number one. Yep. And if you got to
get rid of an agent, some teams don't care. Some teams don't care. That's what's been displayed here. Like, again, Giants, Cubs. Giants did some things, but Cubs didn't do enough. They're worse roster-wise than last year. Red Sox obviously are a joke with what they did this past offseason. They don't care, right? They are sending a message to their fan base that hopefully something still lines up, maybe if it comes to their price range. But if not, it's okay. And also they were okay showing up to spring training and saying, we didn't do that much. There were plenty of other teams, not many, but there were plenty of other teams, right? Like I mentioned, the Dodgers, the Yankees, even the Diamondbacks that said, we're not showing up to spring training not having an improved ball club and not getting some things done that we wanted to get done. The Braves obviously did that too. The Phillies had their short list of NOLA. But do you know what I'm saying? Like, there were some teams that said, we're not showing up to spring training and saying, oh, we didn't really do shit. There are some teams here that are okay with that now. That's what Boston's doing.
Bad.
They are the
Bad.
prime example right now of,
It's bad. It's bad for the game. All this comes down to competitiveness. Be competitive and put the best team out there you can possibly put out there.
Yeah.
And I think the Giants, the little moves that they've made, has allowed them to still be in the market for one of these big four guys, which could be a big move for them. It could put them in that wild card spot.
Agreed. Yeah, I think they need to jump in there. So we'll get back to that in a little bit. Let's bring in our next guest on, FT. He is a sports performance guru. Eric Cressey joining us right now. You've probably heard the name in the game for years now. Eric, great to have you on. We appreciate the time. And you can follow Eric at Eric Cressey or at Cressey SP. I'll let you kind of introduce yourself because you do so many things in baseball and otherwise. So if you meet someone randomly, right, like you're at a dinner party and they can say, what do you do? What do you say?
Yeah. Well, first off, thanks guys for having me. Awesome show. It's cool to see you guys doing great things and spreading the good word. But no, briefly, we have facilities in both Hudson, Massachusetts, and Palm Beach Gardens, Florida. Really, we were some of the first to market just on this baseball niche in the strength and conditioning world, and really opened up in 2007 and realized baseball guys were a really underserved community, and just tried to give them, an offering that was a little more specific to their needs. And it's kind of grown by leaps and bounds to the point that we have guys in all 30 major league organizations and a couple hundred players drafted over the last, 15, 16 years. And then since then, I signed on with the New York Yankees as director of player health and performance prior to the 2020 season, where I spent a solid quarantine with Erik Kratz in New York City prior to the playoff bubble. So we share that in common.
Oh yeah. You were definitely a tier 2 guy, but you were allowed to come around us and give us high fives, but no open-handed high fives, all knuckles.
It was a weird time. I have to go back and look at my badges and see what I was credentialed for back then.
It was if you were tier 1 during COVID, it was like, yeah, I'm tier 1, but if you were tier 2, you were looked down on. So we would definitely look down on Cressey. No, my thing is, you said 2007 you guys started.
Yeah.
And I know one of my good friends, Tim Collins, I always said he made Eric Cressey who Eric Cressey is. No, Tim Collins made Tim Collins who he is with your help. Did you see it becoming what it is? And I specifically talk about Tim Collins because if people go back and don't know who Tim Collins is, he was signed for $10,000 out of high school as a free agent out of Mass or Rhode Island. Which was it?
Mass. He was committed to school in Rhode Island.
Okay. No offers. And this guy was probably 5'7", ended up touching 99 miles an hour. And he would work out 8 hours a day working at your gym. Did you see it becoming Justin Verlander, Max Scherzer, so many guys working out at your place when you started working with Timmy?
Yeah, I don't think anybody, myself included, ever expected to maybe become what it was. But I think it was also in part because you didn't realize that the need was so great. I don't think we could have projected how, baseball injuries would outpace sports medicine's ability to keep up with them. I mean, the game has just changed so dramatically over the course of the time. But I think what we did realize is if you want to build a business, solve a problem. And we just tried to deliver a higher quality product with each passing day. And I think we quickly realized that you couldn't just be a strength and conditioning facility. You also had to handle skill development. You had to have a sports medicine aspect of it. So massage therapist, physical therapist, analytics. So effectively what we did was we built a Major League Baseball organization in the private sector, and including the facilities where it could be a one-stop shop and they could try to get everything they need in one spot. So it served us well. But no, I definitely didn't have that foresight. I wish I could, but it's funny you mentioned Timmy. Timmy was 5'5", 130 pounds when he was signed by JP O'Shea. Yeah, he literally completely changed his body. He grew a couple inches after he got to pro ball too. But Timmy was a CSP OG. We owe a lot to him, and it led to some other big names and really good 2011 draft class that coincided with when he made his big league debut. So it really launched our brand onto the scene.
I want to ask a question here about what you do with all these pro athletes, so people can understand. Is there like a set thing you do with certain players? Is it the same kind of things? Is there specific things that you're keying in on for these guys? Because I remember when I came up, it was all about, clean squats, the big lifts, the heavy lifts, and now it's starting to change a little bit. So can you talk a little bit about what you do specifically with players, and is it different for each player?
Yeah, it's a great question. I have a lot of colleagues in other sports, NBA, NFL, and their experiences is very similar across athletic populations. You get to the baseball world, and you guys have seen it. You have guys that show up who are 17 when they sign, and you might also have a guy who's 38 years old with 15 years in the big leagues that's is trying to reinvent what they were. So you do see a wide variety of players over the course of time, and it's what makes it such a kind of an enriching experience, because the recipe is a little bit different for everybody. So I think where we've kind of made our mark, so to speak, is just meeting guys where they're at. So it's a unique casserole of strength training, mobility training, manual therapy, pitch design, actual structuring the throwing program, how they approach hitting, and also just creating an environment where guys can compete. I mean, right now it's February 23rd, and there's still a lot of major league free agents who aren't signed. So you've got 20 guys with big league experience at our facility throwing against 20 guys with big league experience on the hitting side of things. So it's sometimes it's creating the energy and the environment where those guys can all just spread their wings and and develop in the way that they need to. But individualization is where it's at in today's game, and the organizations that are developing players are the ones that really get that. And it's not just the one size fits all program on the dry erase board anymore.
All right, I'm going to say it so you don't have to. You're the number one guy in this industry. If it's fine, you don't have to. You can be humble. You understand. You're always learning. I'm always trying to get better. Blah blah blah. The number one issue in this sport is Tommy John surgery.
Yeah.
If you're the number one guy, I know how much time you've put into this.
Yeah.
Where are we getting this wrong? Because we talked about it so much. Innings limits, and then you limit guys' innings, and they still get hurt. Feels like we're getting more injuries.
Yeah.
What research have you done, and how close are we to limiting these Tommy John surgeries, or is it all because we throw hard and that's it?
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt about it. The increases in UCL reconstructions has increased linearly right alongside pitch velocity for 20 plus years. It's very actually easy to put your finger on what's causing this. It's very hard to address it. In my opinion, it has a lot to do with what we're doing in the youth development situations. When you talk to these guys who are, veteran players who've got 2,000 plus innings, these guys were playing multiple sports. I mean, you mentioned Scherzer. Max is, beyond adamant that playing hoops and all those other things at a younger age were really, really impactful for his development. What we're seeing now are a lot of these kids who are drafted, and there isn't a normal elbow in today's draft anymore. Everybody's broken in some capacity, whether it's a calcification on the ligament from a previous UCL injury, maybe they've got loose bodies in the joint, maybe they've got an existing stress reaction that they don't even know is there. And what happens is these kind of subclinical issues are there when players come in, and they get bigger, they get stronger, they get more mechanically efficient, and all of a sudden they start throwing 95, 96. Maybe they go from 7-day rotations to 6 or 5, or they go back to back for the first time in their life. And all of a sudden, that tiny little ligament on the inside of their elbow becomes the path of least resistance. So I think what we're doing on the youth sports side of things is really something that needs to be looked at closely. I'd personally love to see MLB get much, much more involved, not just in pitch count stuff, but in just emphasizing, just highlighting how many late bloomers there are in the big leaguers in that population. There's so many guys that were they were the best athlete in the history of their town, but now they were doing a lot of different things and thriving later. And I think that's why we do see more success in college draft picks, beyond just high school guys. It's not just that they had 3 years of more high-level experience. It's also just that, they developed a little bit later and a little bit more of a well-rounded approach. So I think we've flipped the pyramid upside down, and we've chased a lot of specificity. And, baseball is a sport that has unyielding specificity. You want every pitch to look exactly the same. And then, unfortunately, we have a collection of kids that are really good baseball players, but not very good athletes. So I think we need to really regroup and look at what we're doing in the youth models.
Love that.
I love that you brought up the youth, because I got a couple questions on that. And the first I'll ask is, I have a 10-year-old right now. We do travel baseball. Everybody does. Guys are playing right now as we speak. But my first question, to a two-part question, was what can I help to reduce the risk of injury for my 10-year-old right now? Is there like certain specific things that you probably talked about to a lot of people about this?
Yeah. So the first thing I'll say is people ask me a lot, when should my son or daughter start in strength and conditioning? And my mindset has always been they should start as soon as they're psychologically ready for it. When they get excited to go to the gym with dad, that's the moneymaker. I have twin 9-year-old daughters myself. They've been coming to the gym with mommy and daddy on, Sundays. They come and they swing from the TRX and they're doing, gymnastic stuff on the bars and pulling each other on the sleds. Like, free play is really, really important. And I think we all had that when we were younger. We had physical, education classes, things like that. A lot of those things are being pushed out. So I really emphasize that when a kid shows that they're emotionally mature enough to get involved in something, 1 or 2 times a week, just get exposed to some of the foundations of strength, because, people worry that, it's going to stunt their growth or anything like that. The truth is that's not the case. They're exposed to crazy ground reaction forces every time they sprint, every time they jump out of a tree, every time they carry a backpack around. What we do in a fitness setting is very controlled and can be very protective. So I'd say if your little guy's excited to like get going on it, like bring him to the gym, start doing some fun stuff, body weight stuff. That body control goes a really, really long way, and it can actually really help when those kids start to hit growth spurts and they're kind of going through that awkward newborn horse stage where they're a little clumsy. A little strength goes a long way. And then the number 2 thing I would say is like you've got to play multiple sports. Get exposed to as many different things as possible. Find a way to tactfully force the baseball out of their hand for periods of the year where they go and they play basketball or soccer, or whatever it is that they get excited about. I think that's really, really vitally important. Even if it's not like organized, hey, I'm playing hoops from October 31st all the way till March, like go out and play pickup hoops a couple times a week while you're doing your off-season throwing program. What I can tell you is, having worked in Massachusetts and in Florida, we can develop arms much easier in Massachusetts because the weather's not nice. It's really hard to play baseball in the wintertime. Florida's a disaster, and the injury rates really show it from a long-term development standpoint. Everybody's playing right up until Thanksgiving and trying to find 4 weeks to shut down before practices start up in January. It's a really hard dynamic.
And I'm just going to make a comment here because I read one of your – I don't know how you sleep. It's probably why your hair fell out. But
that's it.
You wrote an article. Eric writes articles, does podcasts, all this stuff, and he wrote an article on youth development and how much ground force and everything. You hit on it a little bit there. I just want people to go and read something that you wrote about it, about how youth ground force on just cutting is more than what you're actually doing if you put X amount of weight on your shoulders. So I'm telling you, people, like, Cressey's the guy. It was more of a comment than a question because I know Todd still has another question for you, but I had to say that because I remember reading that article about it, and it is so intriguing because so many people are like, oh, you can't lift or you can't do that or you should play one sport, and I am totally in your camp, and it's not because we're both bald.
Hey, great minds think alike, even with their best haircuts, right?
That's funny. But my second part to the question was talking about youth sports again. Like, where do you see the development going? Because kids, I feel like now, in knowing my son, I don't want him to do fall ball or anything like that. I want him to get ready for the next sport. I feel like now, talking with people and seeing it, like, you think if he doesn't do that, is he going to be left behind? Or because kids are playing right now. They're playing
We good?
I think we're good.
We Gucci, big doggy.
All right, here we
Live.
go. Eric Cressey with us. Apologize for the little hiccup, but we're back on FT.
There he is.
All is back.
Hear that, guys? Has that happened before?
We did have an electricity issue the other day, so it doesn't happen often. But
Hey, Kratz always brings the thunder. I did expect nothing less.
yeah,
Absolutely.
Do you
Absolutely.
want to pick it up, or do you want me to pick
No,
up a question?
I'll ask it again if that's all right with you. I'm sure you were talking about it, but my question was about youth sports again and development.
Yeah.
My son about fall ball. Like, listen, I'm not a big fall ball guy. I'm a big believer like yourself to play 3 sports, but I feel, some people always said, my son's going to be left behind if he doesn't do fall ball, if he doesn't play in this tournament. The kids are playing in tournaments now, and I feel that's not good right now. So what are your thoughts about that situation?
There's a quote in the youth development world that says, early to ripen, early to rot. And I think, you guys have been around the game for a really long time, and everyone knows that kid who was the Little League star in their hometown that, fizzled out pretty quickly because they used all his bullets up at a young age. So I think what we see are kids who are, skeletally mature, they're bigger, they're stronger at a young age just because they develop quickly. Those are the kids that are most likely to get overused, unfortunately. And it's usually because a coach wants to chase the trophy that no one's going to remember 10 years from now at a tournament that nobody can even remember where it happened. So, I look at it really closely, just from a pure time allocation standpoint. You have a 10-year-old son, you go to a travel ball event, fly to Georgia for the weekend, and maybe you do it once or twice just because it's part of the big experience, and they get out, maybe they get to, as they get a little older, visit a college or something like that. But he's going to go there and he's going to get 10 plate appearances in a weekend. You could go out and throw simulated BP in the backyard and get him that for $3,000 cheaper. So sometimes I come back to what's the biggest window of adaptation, and in those younger levels, there's some very foundational things that can actually deliver a really high quality experience, whether it's just getting better reps in training, actually doing some strength conditioning stuff. And it sets the stage for when they get to be 15, 16, some more of those trips being much more high value with them. And I think we just have a lot of kids that are showcasing something when they should be working on building something that's worth showcasing.
Do you think we're cutting into some of this late bloomer status too with the cutting of the minor leagues so much? I am always in proponent. I mean, my career was, if I didn't have those extra players in the minor leagues, I would have never had a chance. I was a late bloomer. Are we cutting into that as MLB's cutting out more and more and more minor league teams?
I worry about it. Tom Kohler is my daughter's softball coach. Tom was a late round pick as well. He went and played 6 or 7 years in the big leagues, and he would have been missed in this year's draft. So I do worry about the smaller draft. I worry about the smaller roster sizes. There's a lot of really, really good athletes that just are craving some developmental opportunities, and I think today's game is even more of a good example of it than it was even 5-10 years ago. We've seen guys, learn pitches on Twitter that they're throwing in major league games the next day. Obviously we're seeing the sweeper revolution. We saw guys that, Justin Verlander from a 2-seam to a 4-seam changed his life. I think we're seeing more and more of that now. It's so many guys that are just one little adjustment away from really taking a huge step forward. So yeah, from a, player development lens, it is harder when you're working with a smaller lens, but there's probably been advantages. There's more opportunities for independent ball and stuff in the private sector to take off and really take the baton where MLB is going to be a little bit smaller. So I think it's just one more pivot in the game that we have to really, keep in mind.
So Eric, how should the dynamic be with players, teams, and work with others? I'll bring up a very hot example. There's a great article from our guy Ken Rosenthal and some of his colleagues at The Athletic about the Pirates. And Key Brian Hayes was struggling. He ends up working with Nuns, who was a hitting coach in the minor leagues for them, and did it privately because he doesn't want to, kind of make it public or embarrass anyone with the major league squad. But I'm like, hey, whatever works, right? So he does that. They let go of Nuns. So clearly the team wasn't pleased with that. And we all know for years that there are players that work with private swing coaches, private strength and conditioning, whatever, right? So how should the dynamic be? Because at the end of the day, we want to win. We want players to perform.
Yeah. I think, I'm not really privy to that specific situation, but I can tell you how I've always approached it. And I'm probably biased because of my work in the private sector before I actually entered professional baseball. At the end of the day, it's about the athlete. And my feeling is we have to do whatever we possibly can to set an athlete up for success. And, I'm mindful of the fact that if you sign a guy to a 1-year deal, he's got a pre-existing history of people he's worked with, things that have been really valuable for him for his career. And the last thing you're going to do is, throw the baby out with the bathwater. So I think it's really important for us to, both in the private sector and in the actual affiliated baseball, to meet athletes where they're at, communicate with them on what's worked, what hasn't, embrace the network that they've created and all that. So I tend to be a guy who always extends all branches to people. And, as a member of a team, you have got, close to 300 players in your organization that are all over creation. They're in different countries. You can't be with every single person. And in fact, it's collectively bargained that they don't even have to answer your phone calls if you reach out to them. So I would much rather go to bed at night knowing that people are working with quality individuals who have a good plan for them, and that I can communicate with regularly. So I always do a lot of outreach with people, and then certainly like my work in the private sector, I'm communicating with with whoever the athlete wants me to communicate with, whether that's a team or an agent or whoever it may be. I think it's at the end of the day, if you have an athlete-centered approach, you could never go wrong.
This is your prime time, being the big dog, Eric Cressey, getting the guys ready for the season. Everybody shows up at spring training, best shape of their life. Do you think there is a correlation with guys who go from like a larger size to a skinnier size, like or even more so, like guys want to look so good, especially with these see-through uniforms that they have now? They want to look so good in a bathing suit that now they get little body tear, they get little muscle tears and stuff. Is there a correlation there? And I know I'm speaking in generalities, but if a certain player is a monster and he comes in svelte, is there a fear of injury there?
What I'll tell you is I've seen players who feel dramatically better heavier, and I've seen players who feel dramatically better lighter. The answer is very different. I think position players in general, as they age, do feel better lighter, which is just time on their feet and cleats and all that. It does seem that some of the veteran pitchers do feel a little bit better holding their velocity with a little bit more body weight as they age. It's very different going out and throwing 100 pitches every fifth day versus being on your feet in the outfield for 6 or 7 days a week. So I think, the answer is a little bit different for absolutely everybody. So it's a conversation. But I think also when you're talking about a player who's, into their 30s, there's a track record of success or failure that you can lean back on. Like, hey, what were you doing when you were at your best? All right, let's try to re-engineer that and look back on what's going to make you successful now. So, I just try to listen a lot more, ask a lot more questions, and then, we lead each other to the answer.
Hey, Eric, let's finish with this. What should best shape of your life look like in spring training? What should that look like? Like, should you have a baseball body versus a football body or a basketball body, and what you should be eating and all of that? Like, when someone shows up and says that, do you believe it?
The best shape of your, it's a hackneyed expression that I could do without. But, for me, the best shape of your life is it's work capacity that's skill specific, right? I always use the example of like Lance Armstrong retired as, the best cyclist in the world. And he kind of became like a mediocre marathoner and, certainly had amazing aerobic capacity, but it didn't necessarily apply to the new skill that he was taking on. I always come back to, like, we see these guys that get after it in the gym. They do all this different stuff, but they don't put their cleats on until, February 10th, or, they don't pick up a baseball until February 1st. So I think as a strength and conditioning coach in professional baseball, the biggest thing you never want to have happen is getting surprised. Like, you want to know what shows up, and that always makes you feel better about stuff. So best shape of your life is relative to, for me, what you've done over the months that precede you.
All right. Last quick one. Tell everybody how much you weigh and what the most is that you've ever deadlifted.
About 185, 660. So a long time ago.
660. You can't see Scotty's biceps, but Scotty does more bicep curls. For the girls, 660. Do the math, people. 180 into 660. I've seen the video. That vein that's popping out of Cressey's head right now, I think almost popped out, but it is an impressive sight. So
Oh my gosh, Eric. I think if I deadlift 260, my back would be on the other side of the room. So I give you
Yeah,
credit, dude. I've struggled with
realizations
that
like that are kind of what I
multiple times.
stopped. So
Dude, that is
not
impressive.
a whole lot
I've
of upside
struggled
in
with
lifting
deadlifts
heavier
my
and heavier
whole life.
stuff.
Yep.
Very cool.
All right, I might have to come over for a day at the Cressey home or at
Absolutely.
the Cressey confines.
We'd love to have you anytime, guys.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Eric, and obviously for everyone else, you can follow the personal at Eric Cressey or Cressey SP and see everything that Eric's got going on. He's got a YouTube channel. He's got a podcast as well if you want to learn more about this. But we appreciate you and enjoy the rest of spring training, man.
Thanks for having me, guys. Appreciate you.
Thank you, Eric Cressey with us. All right, Ken Rosenthal in just a few minutes. Okay, so let's get to the BetMGM futures pick of the day. And this has to do with the Kodai Senga injury in our mind. That's why we're queuing it up. It's the Mets win total for this season, and it has dropped by one little win. So it has gone from 82.5 to 81.5. And Todd Father, since you weren't on with us yesterday when that news broke, what do you think of the New York Metropolitans if they have a shoulder issue for their ace in the staff at 82.5 last week, now currently at 81.5? I'm smashing an under if I don't feel like Kodai Senga is going to be a big part of the Mets this year, or if we think he's going to miss some time. But what about you?
So oh man.
Not gonna.
I don't know. I mean, listen, they got the hitters that can help out. It's I would take the over. I'm going to say they're 85 range. I'm going to take the over.
Okay.
Yep.
Even if Senga's a problem, the shoulder.
Even if Senga's a problem, I'm still taking it. I just don't see them being, 70 and 90. Like I don't know. A 75. They're going to win the games. They're going to win some games, and they got some veteran pitchers that are going to keep them in ball games, and we'll see. We'll see. I would take the
75 and
not
87 last year, Todd Father.
Yeah, well,
And they had Scherzer and Verlander.
For how long?
And
You think
Kodai
they're
Senga.
10 wins
For
better?
how long, though?
You think
They
they're
didn't have
10
him
wins
the whole
better this year?
I do. And I got Jeff McNeil winning the batting title. Let's go.
Oh, I like
Ooh.
that.
Just saying.
I buy that more than the win total.
I don't.
Kratz?
What?
Yeah. Jeff McNeil and Pete Alonso. I need a parlay on that. Jeff McNeil, Pete Alonso, home run champ, Pete Alonso,
Batting
and Jeff
champ.
McNeil batting title. Ooh, you might just be getting on that BetMGM website, aren't you?
Talk to us, Scotty.
You can get on the site. I need that.
Talk to us,
I
Scotty.
need that parlay for you, Todd.
That's aggressive, but Ken's just about ready. So place your first BetMGM sportsbook wager through the app
Wait here.
of at least $5. You'll receive 150 instantly in additional winnings, regardless of your wager's outcome. Download the app, sign up and deposit at least $5 into the new account. Place a wager in the amount of at least $5 at standard odds price. And once you do that, you will receive $150 in bonus bets, regardless of the outcome of your wager. Gambling problem or concern? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Okay, guest number 3, our friend, the regular, but he's not regular. FT Senior Insider Ken Rosenthal joining us right now. Ken, how are you? And I actually wanted to get your thoughts real quick on what you saw out of Mets camp with the Kodai Senga injury and the very quick response from David Stearns to let everyone know that doesn't mean they're going back to the mall to go shopping again.
I was, a little bit alarmed by the news of Senga. Of course, that's number one. And then to see their response, it just shows again that teams are not necessarily going to jump for Blake Snell, Jordan Montgomery, or even Michael Lorenzen or Eric Lauer when they have an injury. Now, that might happen for some teams if they indeed have this kind of injury, but these are two clubs now we've seen have guys at least be questionable. The Orioles with Bradish, though he's throwing, and now the Mets with Senga. The Mets have made it clear all along that 2024 is not a priority, that they're looking beyond that. But at the same time, it's just surprising that these teams are holding the line so much, it appears, on the Boras clients. And I don't know how long it lasts. Certainly, I would imagine Scott Boras, to some extent, is banking on injuries. I don't know that he's hoping for it. I would never say that. But he understands, as we all do, that pitchers get hurt the moment camps open. And perhaps it happens with a team that is willing to spend on a Blake Snell or Jordan Montgomery. But so far, at least so far, that team hasn't emerged.
If it was February 23rd, 2023, would Steve Cohen be going back out on the market again?
Yes, I believe he would be, Eric. It was a different mindset that team had then. Now, granted, we'd have to go way back and understand that Verlander and Scherzer were there already and they had this high payroll, but they were operating differently. If that's your question, there's no doubt about that. They were operating in a much more aggressive mode. The Correa attempt was late, and I don't know if it was February 23rd, but it was late. I think it was around Christmas, actually. But they're not there right now. And they are insisting that they're going to stay disciplined and stay with this program. It's a little bit odd to see. I saw you guys debating the over-under on the wins and losses. The mere fact that we have to debate 81 or 82 wins with them is kind of amazing, all things considered. But they are trying to build. And it's not a rebuild per se because they already have a number of good players. And I will say this also, guys. Before the Senga injury, I was in a camp in Arizona the other day talking with the GM, and he said the Mets are underrated. They're going to be good. Their defense is better with Bader. They're going to do some things. Now, with Senga out, it's a lot more difficult, in my opinion. And even with what the GM was saying, Severino's a wild card. Manai, you don't know exactly what you're going to get there. I was not as convinced, but that was his opinion, again, before the Senga injury.
So let's stick with the Mets here a little bit, Ken. Pete Alonso. Me personally, I think he should be signed long-term today with the Mets. He's a Mets guy through and through. He's great for that city. I know Steve Cohen came out and they talked a little bit about the upcoming free agency. I know he wants him to be there. Why not make this official now? Like, what's holding him back from keeping Pete Alonso there for the rest of his career?
I would say probably Scott Boras is holding him back. And Scott Boras, with guys like Pete Alonso, generally prefers them to go to the open market. I know people get sick of me saying it that way, but that's true. He doesn't love extensions. Now, I believe we discussed this the other day, Todd. I can't remember. But let's say the Mets offer $200 million right now to Pete Alonso. And that's a great offer, obviously. It's above Freeman. It's well above Freeman and Goldschmidt. But if you're Scott Boras, you're thinking, okay, that's the floor. Where do we go from there? And I go back to Juan Soto. If you remember with Juan Soto and the Nationals offered $440 million. Boras said no. He was 2+ years away at the time. It's different than Alonso, who's a year away, but it's the same logic. And I would imagine if the Mets made that offer, made that attempt, Boras would simply consider that a floor, figuring he can get that again from the Mets later, and go from there.
All right. So from one free agent that could be signing next year as a free agent to all the free agents that are not signed, we have Eduardo Rodriguez coming out of camp. He's with a team. Talk about the leadership role that he's taking. And, if you sign ahead of time, you can start doing this type of thing and creating this environment.
He signed in early December, Eric. You're right. It was 4 years, $80 million. And I believe most of us at that time saw that deal as fair on both sides. That's what Eduardo Rodriguez probably was worth. And now you look back on it, and it was pretty smart of him to go that early and to jump on an offer that he liked from a team where he has a history with management. Mike Hazen was with the Red Sox. Torey Lovullo was with the Red Sox when Eduardo Rodriguez was coming up. So was their assistant GM, Amiel Sade. Now, I know when I wrote this today, I saw some of the comments from people saying, oh, yeah, Eduardo Rodriguez, this is the guy who bagged out on Detroit in 22. Well, he had family issues then, and I don't know that it's any of our places to comment on that. Granted, you would not want a player to be gone for 2 months. I get it. But at the same time, I can only write what I see right now. That's my job. And what I saw in a couple of visits to Diamondbacks camp was a guy that is involved with the younger pitchers. And the start of this column is about a situation where he's down on his knees and he gets up like a sprinter, like in a starting block. And he's talking in Spanish to 3 younger pitchers. One of them was Miguel Castro, their veteran reliever. And obviously he's speaking quickly. He's speaking in Spanish. I don't understand what he's saying. I'm not good on Spanish. But I asked him later what that was about. And he said I was telling them that Usain Bolt trained 4 years for 10 seconds, 4 years to run in a 10-second race. And he did it repeatedly to get his body, his mechanics fluid, to make sure he was all good in that sense so that when he ran, he just had to go. Same with pitching. And that was the message he was imparting. Now, it's February 20 whatever. And granted, these things, what we see in February, late February, or March, or late March, don't always translate to the regular season. But he did some of this in Detroit as well. At the second year he was there. And he's a guy who talks very fondly about what Pedro Martinez taught him with the Red Sox and how Pedro took younger pitchers under his wing and tried to impart certain lessons. That's what Rodriguez is doing, at least right now. And I know Detroit fans have their own narrative, and they probably want me to write their own narrative, but guess what? Narratives change.
So, Ken, are you in Cubs camp later, or you were there already?
I was there already this morning, yes.
Okay, so what was the vibe there? Like, obviously, you're just at a camp. It's not like you can totally evaluate how a team is. I know they're very excited about their farm system being ranked pretty high up there, but we have some funny comments in the chat asking what inning they're in their offseason plans at this point, because they were halfway through. They were in like the fourth or fifth about a month and a half ago, and they haven't woken up yet.
That was Jed Hoyer's line, president of baseball operations, and they're certainly not in the ninth inning from what we can tell. Things might be going on behind the scenes, but right now they're still in that mode where they're waiting for their next move, if that next move happens, if it's Bellinger or not. The one thing I will say, Scott, and you mentioned it, they are excited, even the players, about the young talent coming through, about some of these prospects beginning to emerge and guys who might be a factor as early as this season. They have that, and that's good. It's all well and good, but the Chicago Cubs, they need more than that as well. They need both things going on. You need to bring in players, and you need to develop players. They haven't been so active on the bringing in players front, and that's what fans are wondering about, what we're all wondering about. They got Imanaga on a free agent contract. He's not Shohei Ohtani as a pitcher. He's not Yoshinobu Yamamoto as a pitcher. He is a lesser guy. And they made the trade for Michael Busch, who will play first base, left-handed hitter. They like him, younger guy. They need more. We all know they need more. And it's going to be interesting to see if they win, if that's the right word, the stare down with Bellinger, if they eventually end the stare down with Bellinger and get him, or what else they might do.
I don't need to be a Tommy Pham seller, but I am a huge Tommy Pham fan. And what is the, not the reason, because we're always leaning on what the reason is. How is there a team that does not need him in camp? Because I think position players may need to be in camp just a tick sooner than pitchers. So could this be spelling the end for Tommy Pham, who's not the big, the big five, the big four that are still out there?
I don't know that it's the end, Eric, but he certainly is still unemployed. He's part of a group with Adam Duvall and Michael A. Taylor, Kike Hernandez, Michael Lorenzen, Eric Lauer, remaining free agents. And I wrote about this yesterday. These guys are qualified major leaguers. They should be in camp somewhere getting ready to go for the season. Now, the problem is that as we get later here, and you've seen some of the deals the last few days, Ahmed Rosario for $1 million, Gio Urshela for $1.5 million, even Tim Anderson for $5 million. I don't know that the money is there for these guys, and I don't know that their expectations will get met. So you ask why they're not signed. I don't know what they were asking for initially. I have no feel for that. I do know that these guys are good enough, my goodness, to get reasonable one-year deals and maybe even in some cases longer than that. In Pham's case, I think what is hurting him is that he's 36 and he had a really good year last year. You spoke highly of him just now, Eric. Players who have played with this guy love him. They love the intensity he brings. They love what he does offensively, and defensively he was better last year. There is no reason why Tommy Pham should not be getting a decent deal from a major league team at this point. There's no reason why any of those other guys I listed aren't either. Even a guy like Darren Ruff, kind of a platoon DH type, but he's an effective major league player and he's still out there. It's bizarre to me that this is happening. I understand it might be related in part to Bellinger and Chapman on the hitting side, Snell and Montgomery on the pitching side. But again, these are qualified major leaguers. These are competent players, good players in many cases. And it's troubling to me and it's curious to me why these guys are still out there.
Ken, you were also recently at camp checking out the White Sox and checking out the Diamondbacks. So I saw that and I go, there's actually a connection with these two. I'm sure you know where I'm going, where my head is at. So both owners spoke out in the past week about trying to either get a lot of public money for a ballpark renovation, or that's the Diamondbacks, or in the White Sox case, a new ballpark. So I don't know if you caught those comments, but in Chicago, they're on fire about Jerry Reinsdorf kind of calling out really the place that they're in now, and White Sox fans that they have to be there and get a ton of public money, and essentially threaten to leave. And Ken Kendrick actually did that too, and not even in a sneaky way. I'm paraphrasing, I don't mean to threaten, but we're running low on time.
I don't mean to threaten, but I'm threatening. That's kind of how it went down. And it's the old game owners play, not just in baseball, in all sports, when they want a new ballpark or a new stadium. And these threats are considered leverage on their part. And even when they try to dress them up and make them sound nice, as Kendrick did, they still qualify as threats. And with these teams, if you've been to Chase Field, certainly you understand that they do need renovations. The question is always, who is going to pay for them? And how much is the team willing to give? How much is the local municipality willing to give? And that's the issue there. The White Sox thing, it's funny to me. When New Comiskey opened, it was New Comiskey back then, whatever it is now, Guaranteed Rate Field. That was well in the future at that point. It opened a year before Camden Yards. And I remember vividly being in a cab with Larry Lucchino, who was then president of the Orioles. We were going to the New Comiskey, and he was basically saying, this place is nothing. It's not nearly as good as ours is going to be. You'll see. And I was like, yeah, right. Well, he was proven right. And those ballparks, again, a year apart, one of them is and always will be a crown jewel of the sport. That's Camden Yards. And the other park, it's okay. It's just nothing great, though. And now, of course, they want a new one. And the idea for the new one and where they want to put the new one, it seems really good. But again, the question, who pays? And when these owners do this, they want someone else to pay, or at least pay a significant portion. And that is where both of these things are. They sound much like any other kind of leverage play you've seen in the past or heard in the past. And that's where they both are.
Yeah, as someone who interacts with dedicated baseball fans basically every day, all day now in chats, right, with our show and on all of our clips, I mean, the way that they speak is part of the problem here. Like Ken Kendrick's line essentially made it as if we're all stupid, and he's saying, I'm not threatening, but then bringing up other cities that are really interested. Like, I just don't understand why it always gets to that point. I'm sure they're doing the threatening behind the scenes, but to do that publicly and think that you're going to win fans over. And then in Chicago, Jerry said, well, we got to keep up with these $700 million contracts. Like, dude, there was one. It's present day value in the 400s. And AJ Pierzynski's favorite trivia question is, the Chicago White Sox have never signed a player for $100 million plus. So he's not in that ballpark anyway. Why is he?
Yeah, he's not playing that game no matter what ballpark they get. We've seen this.
Yeah.
So honestly, Scott, I don't know what better way to frame it, how you make this sound good publicly. I don't know that you can. It is what it is. It's a threat. And I'm with you. Behind the scenes, do whatever you want. Cajole and twist arms and threaten, plead, however you want to do it. First day of spring training, which is when Kendrick spoke, that's a curious time to bring this up. He knew he had an audience, and he knew where he was going with that. And listen, what he said is undeniable to a certain extent. There are cities interested. We know this because there are cities clamoring for an expansion team. He also said, they'd rather have an existing franchise than an expansion franchise. It's clearly a message he is trying to send, clearly a threat. That ballpark does need help. I would not deny that. I was there for the WBC all last year and other times as well, World Series, it's not in great shape. Again, who pays?
Yep, I'm with you. Ken, thank you very much. Enjoy camps over the weekend. We'll talk to you next week.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. FT Senior Insider Ken Rosenthal with us, and Fair Territory back as always on Mondays most of the time. You can still catch that, early afternoon when it gets released via podcast, or obviously on the FT YouTube channel as well. And just a little reminder, 11 a.m. is when we're going to be back on Monday for the rest of spring training, not the usual 1 p.m. Eastern time. Okay, let's do That's What He Said. So, little Yankees talk, Todd Father. Brian Hoke tweeted out a question that Hal Steinbrenner was asked. They said, would the Yankees pay Juan Soto more than Aaron Judge? And the answer was, I guess that's an interesting question, but not one I've thought about. I'm not sure Judge would care if we got Juan Soto for many years to come, but the market is what the market is, and he's going to cost what he costs. We'll just have to see and wait. So my question to you is, number one, do you really think Aaron Judge cares if Juan Soto is making more than him on a guaranteed contract? And number two, Aaron Judge is many years older than Juan Soto. That's how free agency works. So I'm not knocking Hal on this. I'm more knocking the question, because remember when Yamamoto was still a free agent and there was something thrown out there about Garrett Cole and, the Yanks shouldn't go over Cole's contract. I'm like, that's not how the free agent system works. Who cares? I don't even understand the question.
Yeah, I think it was your standard answer from Hal too. I mean, not trying to get in depth with something, not trying to, make it bigger than what it seems. It was just a question that Hoke asked, and, it's not that far-fetched because he's a really good baseball player, Juan Soto is. He deserves a lot of money. He deserves a lot of money. I don't know exactly where that price point is. I don't think the Yankees want to get into talk something like that because, it's something they're worried about the season. They want the season to do well, but it's going to keep coming up, and especially if he does well. So that's something that Hal's going to have to really pinpoint, put under control, and try and figure out what they really want to do come baseball time, because in my opinion, I think he's going to be one of the most dominant baseball players because I think he's fit for New York. I think he's been waiting for this kind of limelight, ever since he was with the Nationals, with the little swagger, the little shimmy he's got. He's going to fit in well there, and he's going to do just fine. So the better he does, the more these questions he's going to get. But I just think it was a standard answer. I don't really want to get into it. He is what it is. He's going to cost what he costs. Standard. Nothing really more to it.
This is indicative of what Hal Steinbrenner and the Steinbrenners how they've run the Yankees. That you rarely see extensions done by the Yankees. And they're very good with saying, you know what? We get you at a cheaper price during arbitration. If you earn it, we'll pay for you in free agency. Do they get everybody? They don't get everybody. The last 2 years, they have gotten the best players available in the market. They got Carlos Rodon and they got Juan Soto. Was it a free agent? No. They're not trying to cut costs. They're trying to win. And it is very blatant. If Juan Soto has the year everyone thinks Juan Soto is going to have, 280 with a 400 OPS on base percentage, with 100 stakes, and the Yankees make it to the World Series, you know what? Juan Soto is going to cost $520 million, and the Yankees will be talking to him because they'll have a whole year of getting to know this guy.
Aaron Judge is going to be pissed if the Yankees don't bring him back.
Yes, agreed.
For sure.
That's where he'll be pissed.
Yes.
I agree.
If it's within the realm of still being able to field a good team and it makes their team better, that's what teams do. Teams that want to win, they want to make their team better at all costs. That's why they got Aaron Judge back. That's why they paid for him to come back that extra year that Hal agreed to when he was on his trip to Italy or Spain, wherever he was. It matters to them, and they want to win. So if Juan Soto will make them better for the next 12 years, like his contract could be, or 14 years, they will sign him.
Mm-hmm.
Agreed.
He's such a perfect fit right in front of Judge in that order. My gosh. I mean, I haven't even appreciated what it's going to look like. And as people know, I'm not a Yanks fan. I'm just a baseball fan. But yes, Juan Soto is a freaking plate discipline machine who can do damage. And think about how many of those solo homers for Judge will turn into 2-run homers with a dude who gets on base better than anyone else in the game right now.
He's going to be on there.
Oh, my God.
You figure the guys that were on in front of him, especially when Rizzo was struggling, Rizzo was a guy that was supposed to be that on-base machine. It's going to be bananas. There's going to be some lineups in the American League that I'm like, I still think the Jays lineup is going to crush it. I think they're going to come back. The Rangers might even have a better lineup 1 to 9 than the Yankees do. And the Yankees top 4 or 5 is the best there is in the game.
Mm-hmm. Well said. All right, we got a little longer slap hands edition coming your way here, and then I got to catch a flight, so let's hit it. By the way, Todd Father, I don't know if you know this, but I will be making stops at Studio Kratz. I don't know if we have a name for it yet. I will be making stops at the lab.
The cave.
What is it?
The cave.
The cave. The cave.
The cave.
Look at Jake Cave.
I like the K, too. The cave with a K.
Perfect.
I will be at the lab next week as well for some shows. Yes.
No.
And also, I don't know if people know this, but no, I'm not allowed?
No.
Okay, I'll go to Kratz. So
Okay.
we are doing spring. I'm back. We're doing spring training shows next week as well. We're going to do spring training shows for the next couple weeks, as in we will have someone in Florida, not me,
Let's
but
go, baby.
it'll be AJ, Adam Jones or AJ Przinsky will be at certain spring training camps. So look out for that. We'll put a little more of a schedule out there on social soon so people can see which camps we'll be at, but we'll talk to some players in person. Looking forward to that. So a couple things I wanted to address here in Slap Hands. First off, we did have a spring training game yesterday. We hyped it before it started, just the fact that games are back. And woo, that first inning, nothing means shit, but it was just a Dodger pop-off. 8 runs, 26-minute first inning. And whatever, Joe Musgrove is the opening day starter. He's a vet. He didn't have the breaker with him. That's what this shit's for. But the things also on an individual basis that I like. Little Teoscar Hernandez ground rule double. You see him added to the offense, and he's almost like a forgotten man when you look at everything else they did this offseason. And it's like, oh, yeah, they also have Teoscar Hernandez, who is capable of being like a 35-plus homer bat and can be a monster for this team. In certain situations, like more of like your all-out 3-run homer or swing and miss guy, and also fills a platoon that they've been looking for. Everyday player, but obviously can also smash some lefties. But also Yuki Matsui, did you see him? Kratz striking out the side.
K-Dogs.
Yeah.
I mean, that could be a big pickup. He's never nobody's going to replace Hader, but they brought him in to be able to be that one-inning guy, and, hey, first day looks good. But obviously the Dodgers 8 runs in the first inning.
That's good and bad.
That'll get you going. Now the 2015 Royals,
No.
we hit back-to-back home runs first game of spring training.
No, but I'm saying
Wow.
like that's pretty sweet. But the first day you put up 8, you're like, damn, man, I ain't getting home until like 5:30, 6 o'clock.
Especially if you're sitting on the bench as a minor leaguer,
if
you're
sitting on the bench, you're like, oh man.
But for the Padres, the Crone Zone went deep.
Crone Zone.
He is only going to go up because it was pretty low last year for him.
Love it.
True. Agreed. Okay. Just want to emphasize this again. So tomorrow we have a special show at 2:30 East Coast time, but we will be on the West Coast in Oakland. I'm flying right after the show here to bring on a ton of guests from A's Fans Fest. Coco Crisp, Grant Balfour, the mayor of Oakland, and a number of other players and local personalities will join us. Trevor May, the great. And the A's have been fighting this behind the scenes. Like, they have a ton of former players that are showing up, but apparently there were a couple recently that had committed, and then they sent like the same copy-paste excuse note that clearly maybe they're getting a little kashish from the A's to not go, or maybe they're at spring training with them. So they were like, yo, if you go, you're not working for us anymore. And then also, I feel bad for this business, but they should have just handled it differently. So this is like the big story right now in Oakland. So there's a company or a brewery, whatever, called Drake's, and they last minute canceled. They had, donated to the event, and obviously they had marketing materials prepared for them, banners, all this stuff, right? And then they pulled out last minute and basically just ghosted the whole event. There's a ton of sponsors, so it's all good. So that happens, and of course, 3-4 breweries pick up the pace right after that. And here's Eno Cyrus, who I think will be there, a friend of the show, and said local breweries stepping up for A's fans this weekend after Drake's pulled out. So I think what happened here, this is a very educated guess, is that group does business with the A's, and that's fine. Like, you got to make your living. That's all good. And the A's definitely are making some calls. John Fisher actually getting something done for once in his life, but it's very negative. So he got them to pull out. But the problem is, if I'm a brewery like that, I still give the money that I committed and say, listen, they put us in a spot here, and get that done behind the scenes. Apparently they just ghosted the whole situation. So a bunch of other local spots picked up the pace.
Yeah.
So all the rage out there. And it's just another case of the A's being the A's right now. And I don't mean the franchise or the players. I mean the tippy top ownership group spending most of their time and effort trying to take down something that is a huge positive in the community, because it's going to be an all-out party tomorrow. And it looks like beautiful weather, indoor, outdoor setup. I might as well do this one more time too. Shout out. Oh, there it is.
Nice.
Baseball's last dive bar. Appreciate you guys.
Enjoy that. Enjoy it.
Yeah. So anyway, I'm super excited, as you can tell. I've been looking forward to this for a long time.
The whole Drake's thing, that's tough. That's tough.
It's not.
And at some point, Oakland's leaving, and unless Drake's is looking to go to Sacktown or Las Vegas, we'll find out, or Salt Lake, right? We'll find out exactly what they said, because Drake's is a business, and they're in the stadium. But if it comes out that the ownership group made some kind of hollow threat, or maybe a real threat, about taking him out of the stadium, and if you go to Fans Fest, we'll find out about it. So just be tuned in about a year when they're out of Oakland here, see what happens, because that's trash if that's what happened.
Yeah, and I did some digging, and they just ghosted them. They wouldn't even pick up to talk about the situation. So clearly it was like a real, Jersey hit job behind the scenes. That was my only gripe. I know people have to make a living, but you just, as a human being, call and say, listen, you can understand the situation I was just put in. I apologize, whatever. It was none of that. So that's where you should just be a person, handle your biz, tell someone that you've been forced to do something else, and even can say it off the record, whatever. And then no one would have bothered you, but they publicized this because of the way that they handled things. I don't think it's that difficult to handle business that way. So anyway, Kratats, what do you got?
I mean, when you come to Jersey, you got to make sure you pay your tolls.
The Yankees win.
It's my 2017
Wow,
postseason hat.
Yeah.
Todd's got one of these.
Beautiful thing.
We got the same.
That's actually mine.
It's not. That little peanut head of yours ain't fitting over this noggin.
Give it to me.
Boy, look at what happened.
Watch out.
You got to grade it while you're putting it on.
7 5/8. You're just a little bit bigger than mine.
Looks like a helmet fitting on your head.
I got to call Robbie up to get a couple freshies. That's not bad.
You got to grade it.
Oh, that's an A+, big dog. Easy peasy.
A+.
Yeah.
That's postseason.
Yeah, it's rare.
I can't believe you didn't bring a see-through hat today. Such a miss.
And nobody wants to see what's underneath it. I'll probably get sunburned in here if I get a hat. That's a spring training hats. They're see-through.
Hey, Tigers camp, Phillies camp, Braves camp are all locked in for next week. We will have either Brzezinski or Adam Jones at those camps. I'll be hanging out with Kratz and Todd Father and make sure the Wi-Fi is strong at those camps. Otherwise, we'll be there to rescue everything. Reminder, the show begins 11 a.m. Eastern time, 11 to 1 on Monday for the rest of spring training, so we can get as many players onto the show for Real Talk Combos. Subscribe to the FT channel. Join us tomorrow, please. Wherever you are in life, just tune in and support the Oakland A's fans, support your baseball community. So we will see everyone on tomorrow.
Packed house.
What?
Packed house tomorrow.
Hell yeah. 1,000.